What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the Wise Take NFL DFS First Look. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. Joined once again by one of the original OGs of the Wise Take Nation. That's right, original OG, Patio Joe. You can find him on Twitter at Patio Joe. Ref, Joey, you're looking very presidential tonight.
Thank you, man. It's week 4. I'm here in Cleveland at the presidential debate stage. I made sure that we got done. I made sure everybody cleared the debate stage, and now I'm sitting here ready to talk week 4. Because what I just witnessed this evening was a shit show beyond belief. So I want to talk football.
Yeah, man. I think you could certainly make better use of that setting than what we saw tonight. So that was just a train wreck. And you know what? We have another one coming on Thursday with the Colts and Jets game. I'm sorry, the Broncos and Jets game on Thursday Night Football. So the week of the train wrecks, week 4, right? How was your week 3, Joe?
Week 3 was good. Cash game lifestyle. I went to 3-0 and beat the trains. The trains were out this week big time. I mean, I remember going into the afternoon slate, because it was 5 games on the afternoon slate. There was at least 40 lineups with the same point total going into the afternoon slate. They had the same 2 or 3 guys in the morning, and that was it. And everybody had almost the same guys in the afternoon. And whether it's just sticking to my principles as a cash game player to where I don't stack and such, that obviously I'm going to be different than the trains just because of that. That train, the most popular train on Sunday was one that had Kyler, Hopkins, and Drake. And if you read my article, I said you need to play at least one of them in your cash game lineups, but you don't stack and cash them. That's just what I do. You could have played Kyler and Hopkins and been fine, but you don't play Kyler and Drake. You don't play Hopkins and Drake, and you surely don't play 3 of them in cash games. And that was what the popular train was. And if the Buccaneers defense didn't hit, those trains would have went off the track and not cashed at all. I got a little bit different by going with James Conner, who was 8 or 9% owned in cash games, which I love. I wrote about him. And then my defense was the Indianapolis Colts. We talked about it on the Y stream on Friday night. I was like, the Colts are the obvious defense of the week. And Paulie was like, no, man, the Giants. I was like, no. I'm like, yeah, I see it, but no.
I think the debate was I think Paulie had mentioned that he felt like the Steelers had a higher floor because of the sack rate. Which is just a total tournament mentality, right? And we were trying to explain who are they throwing to? That's look at the Jets players. It's at a certain point you have to consider the opponent, right? You got the Steelers,
and then you get lucky. I mean, obviously, 2 pick sixes you're never gonna get.
Right.
So that was lucky, but still, it was crazy that. But that's how I cashed. It was because I had Connor. And I had the Colts defense, and that stack that everybody wanted to play didn't hit. And I just don't stack and catch games. And I feel like you got to stick to that. Some people will. I don't agree with that thinking. I'm not saying there might not be certain times where it might not happen because there's always exceptions to the rule. But to me, it's always, I feel like that's why I won, is because you didn't go with, it seemed like the build was even more obvious on DK than it was on FanDuel sometimes. So it was tough, but I wound up surviving again, going to 3-0.
It is what it is, Joe. Nicely done through week 3. And looking forward to week 4 and hearing what you have to say in cash games this week. It's obviously early. Those of you who are just joining us, welcome. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. The likes really go a long way. Allow us to continue to do dirties on YouTube, on Twitch, on Podbean, iTunes, all that. So do us a favor, hit the like, and share the show. Share the show. Really helps us out. Word of mouth. With that said, Joe, before we get into the first look, I'm going to announce the details of the giveaway. We gave away $20 last week. We had like a little private drawing on stream. It was cool. This week we're giving away $50. That's right. More than double. $50. That's right. $50. To anyone who participates. We are currently doing a Twitter campaign. So we will do contests on YouTube as well, but we're doing a Twitter campaign. We're announcing it on YouTube for Twitter. So follow us on Twitter at @wise_take. You're going to look for the tweet that contains the link to this particular YouTube video, and you'll see it. We'll pin it to the top after the show, but we're looking for a like of the tweet, a retweet of the tweet, and be sure you're following the Wise Take Twitter at @wise_take. So very simple rules. Again, it'll be repeated up on the Wise Take Twitter. And then again, we're gonna just take the names, people who participate, meet the credentials, and we'll probably run it. Check the tweet to find out when we're doing the actual drawing. Check it to see when the last day you could participate in this is, because there will be a cutoff. Last week we kind of let it run up until Saturday. There will be a cutoff. So make sure you're following us on Twitter. And if you don't have Twitter, I know some people have said they don't have Twitter, but they want to participate in the contest. Just be patient. We will run a YouTube contest, and depending on which platform we're trying to push, we'll run some contests on there as well. So make sure you act right. You act right, you get $50. You have a shot to get $50. It don't cost you nothing, right? All we're asking you to do is spread a little bit of love, spread a little bit of the Wise Take Nation love. That's it. All right, Joe. Enough emotional shit. It is time to get into the nitty gritty. We've got a bunch of games, 13 games, of course, to get into. We're going to go game by game as we always do, starting with the Indianapolis Colts and the Chicago Bears. We have a 44.5 total. Colts currently 2.5-point favorites. Joey, talk to me about this game.
Yeah, if you're interested in this game, everybody on FanDuel is relatively priced low. Nobody's above 7,500. You got Jonathan Taylor. So if you wanted to go to this game, I think you could, but I just don't know if you're going to. The Colts have one of the best defenses, at least in the start of the year. And then they got Nick Foles starting now, so you just don't know, how that's going to go. He was going up against a really bad Falcons defense. So I just feel like, it's going to be maybe bits and pieces here and there, a throw-in on like a, Millie Maker type, maybe Jonathan Taylor for volume, but I just think at 7,500, now he's priced up into the part where he's not meeting his value. I mean, he only had 13 rush attempts last week for 59 yards. If he didn't get in the end zone, he wasn't going to do anything. So if you think this game is going to be a ugly game and such, and it's just going to be kind of low scoring, I'd probably go with the under 2 on this. I feel like it's just a fade or just having bits and pieces, maybe Allen Robinson, maybe, and that's it.
It's a weird one, right? It's one of the lower totals on the slate. We've got some really big totals, like a pretty good amount of high totals. Looking at the Colts side, their receivers are dropping like flies, man. They're just dropping everywhere. So normally you would look at it and say, well, that kind of makes these things more interesting, but we're not seeing Phillip Rivers throw a ton. That could be because of the game scripts they've been in. I mean, they played Jacksonville, Minnesota, and of course the Jets. But there's some concerns. I think T.Y. Hilton may be worth a tournament flyer. I've been playing him for the first 2 weeks, so leave it to me to hop off him, and he finally fucking does what I've been waiting to do all the year. But we haven't seen any signs. He's looked terrible. Rivers, and they're playing smart. When they don't have to use certain people, they don't use certain people, right? Like even with Taylor, he probably could have had a big game just based off opportunity, but they let Hines go in there a little bit because they just didn't need it. It was just so ugly. With Nick Foles starting, I have no interest in him, but I do think that the Allen Robinson is obviously a much more strong play than he was with Trubisky. Like you, though, I just think there's better spots. So I think there's things you can consider here. David Montgomery is kind of interesting when we know Tyreek Cohen is now out, right?
Yeah.
Any interest in him?
Yeah, he actually, at his price at 5,800 on FanDuel, with the volume that he's going to get, I don't mind it. You got to hope that game script goes his way. He has gotten 3 targets in every game of the year. So, if you figure he's going to get anywhere from 14 to 15 carries, 50 yards, and maybe 3 catches, he's probably a decent floor cash play that you wouldn't want in tournaments, because I don't think he's going to get you nothing. But his ceiling is not there either.
Yeah, I agree. It's like teams who play the Colts, it's just like ceiling is just thrown out the window, it seems. Right? It's just blah. Everything sets up for blah. But I'm with you. Let's move on. Los Angeles Chargers, Joey, your Los Angeles Chargers, and the Tampa Bay Bucks. We have a 43.5 total, so doing one better. Bucks currently 7.5-point favorites. That's up from 7. Do you like anything? We'll break it into sides. So talk to me about the Chargers first.
Chargers side, I think the guys you probably would have to be looking at are the obvious ones. It would probably, Eckler on FanDuel is 6,900. He actually went down in price, but had his best game last year. So explain that to me. The last play, I don't know if you saw the last play of the game. The Chargers ran like a hook and ladder. And they had it almost set. I mean, literally, he probably would have scored if the lateral was a little bit better. But typical Chargers, they lose to the Panthers when C-Mac isn't playing. But it seems to me like he's going to get the targets now with Herbert. They should be down in this game, so I feel like Herbert found his 2 guys. It was either him, Keenan Allen, who led the world in targets, I think.
Oh my God,
he had 19 targets.
Wild.
I mean, that is just crazy. I mean, he's basically neutered almost anybody else on the team. You could maybe try for Hunter Henry just once again a decent floor spot. His price was. It's so weird the algorithm on FanDuel. His prices went up 6,100 from 6,000, but he had a worse game last week. It's just. He's at least getting 7 or 8 targets a game. So that's about it. No interest in Herbert. Like Eckler, probably the best. Keenan Allen has a decent spot too. They probably should be playing from behind, but this game is going to be ugly also, I think, too.
Yeah, no, I do agree. Although it does have a relatively fast projected pace, right? We got Brady in the Bucks rated as 8th. I think it's 8th or 6th. I got terrible eyes. 6, I'm sorry. 6 in pace. And then the Chargers at 11th, which isn't too bad. But it's because they've been trailing more than I think anticipated, right? I think I'm with you on Eckler. I think he's definitely where you start in this game. You're dying to play something from here. But I'm not crazy about him coming off that ceiling game. We have a lot of cheaper running backs that I'm kind of into this week. But obviously, I think he's a fine tournament play. You mentioned Keenan Allen. He's only 6,500. 19 targets last week was wild. Now, there's no guarantee that's going to be the same drill going forward. But I agree with you, man. If Rivers knew to throw to this, I think this kid's going to learn quickly that that's the guy you want to give the ball to when you're throwing. Mike Williams, 4,200 on DraftKings. Also someone to kind of keep in the pool, I think. I mean, with all the attention, I'm sure we see 19 targets. I'm sure the opposing defense coming into this, the Tampa Bay Bucks is looking at that, and I think they're going to recognize the same thing we saw. So I think Mike Williams, interesting pivot. Hunter Henry's only 4,800 on DraftKings. It's like he's getting same thing as Logan Thomas, except he's more expensive. He's getting the volume. He's just not getting the touchdowns. So maybe we see some touchdown progression go his way, and he falls into the end zone. What about the Buck side with no Godwin?
I think the one problem thing with the Chargers offense is that they're not going to score a lot of points this year. So to think that there's going to be a game where they're scoring 40 points, I just don't think it's going to happen. On the Bucs side, to me, the defense probably stands out the most to me right off the bat. You're not going to want anything with Brady. There's all those good quarterbacks this week. He seems to be like, just throwing, I don't know if he could throw it 40 or 50 times a game, or, he has no rushing ability. Mike Evans is the only show in town. He's going to be on the Chargers' good DB, so Hayward, I wouldn't deal with that. He's their only healthy guy. Maybe a guy like Scotty Miller you're going to look to, and O.J. Howard. But this game, like I said, is going to be, if you want to throw something at Fournette or Ronald Jones, go right ahead. You could pick out to see who's going to get the carries in that, but I'd stay away also. None of them taking control of that backfield. So this game is pretty much a cross-off to me, besides maybe Eckler, Keenan Allen, or the Tampa D.
Yeah, I don't disagree for the most part. Brady's a ceiling issue. He's got one less option. It just makes him less attractive. I don't want to play the game either with Fournette and Jones. I think that like I said, I think we have a lot of running backs that are fairly priced that I'd rather take the shot on. And just when we thought Fournette was going to emerge and take over the role, last week Jones comes back and gets a bunch of carries. Evans and Casey Hayward, right? That's the matchup that we're anticipating. I mean, Evans is one of those, the 50-50 balls. He's made a career winning, but we've also seen him struggle against good corners like Marshawn Lattimore from time to time. So I think it's fine for tournaments, and like you expect him to get more volume. You expect Brady to want to get the ball to Evans, but at the same time, if he can't get open, then you could expect him to utilize Scotty Miller, maybe even Justin Watson. Although I think Scotty Miller is the one that's done a little something recently. I think he caught a touchdown last week. Not really interested in the tight ends, although I will say that the price is getting real low on these guys. O.J. Howard, 3,300. Rob Gronkowski, 3,600. That is those are really low prices on DraftKings, and they're both averaging like 3 to 4 targets a game. But I agree. There seems like, I'm sure there's better spots. There's just better games. One of which, talk about a total increase. We've got the Cleveland Browns visiting the Dallas Cowboys. We have a 55 total. That is down from 56. The Cowboys currently 4.5-point favorites at home. Obviously, Dallas coming off of a brutal loss in which Russell Wilson cooked that ass. Joey, talk to me about the Browns.
Well, the Browns, they're coming in trying to run the ball. Last week, I think Chubb made a really good, decent GPP play. I think, once again, he makes a decent GPP play. If I had to pick one of the two this week, though, this could be a Kareem Hunt week. When there's going to be up and down games, maybe Cleveland's going to be playing from behind. We have a high total. Kareem Hunt's going to be used more in the passing game. Kareem Hunt's been, people are talking about, how, he's right up there with Chubb, but he's just been really efficient with the touches that he's getting. He's scoring touchdowns, on 2 or 3 touches or something. He had 16 rush attempts, but that was late. He only had 3 targets, but then one of them, he had 2 catches, one of them was a touchdown. The game before, 2 catches, one of them was a touchdown. And he gets these carries late in the game. So if the game is up and down, he's going to get more, receptions and stuff. So I would definitely go for him more as a DraftKings play than on FanDuel. The wide receivers, I think you're going to have to be looking at Odell Beckham Jr. at 6,600 and Jarvis Landry at 5,700. We've seen what receivers have done to this Dallas secondary, and you have to attack it if you're Baker Mayfield. I don't know if I touch Baker. I just don't. At 7,000, he might be. I think he's probably a decent GPP option. He's not for me in cash, but I think Odell. This could be an Odell week, as well as Landry, because we saw what Lockett did, and we saw what my boy, the man-child DK did. So this could be more of a passing game that you want from the Browns this week than anything.
I agree. I agree completely. As much as their rushing tendencies is why I'm not really interested in Baker. Even though quarterbacks have gone off against this team, but I'm definitely interested in getting some exposure to the receiving game. I mean, if they can't make this work, then it will never work. Dallas has been terrible against the receiver, terrible against the pass. They're not great against the run. I think they're 15th in DVOA, but still better at the run than the pass, where they're 24th. So I do think that Chubb and Kareem Hunt are both viable. It's always tough to kind of make that guess, but like you said, Nick Chubb averaging 17 rushing attempts per game. Kareem Hunt averaging 13, so it's not like it's that drastic of a split. And Hunt obviously more relied on the pass work, so that would kind of go in line with the whole pass attack, I think. So I don't disagree, but I'm gonna have a firmer stance on the receivers. Most likely Odell. I mean, we saw them both. Metcalf and Lockett were both. If Metcalf doesn't fuck around with the ball and let it get tipped out before he gets in the end zone, they both put up monster scores. Like Metcalf did well, but they could have had monster scores. So I'm with you, man. I think this might be the time we have to look at these Browns receivers. I lean towards Odell. He's the target leader at the moment. And we think the most talented, right? We'd say that. So, yeah, don't rule out Landry. I think his ownership would be lower, I think. But yeah, I do lean towards Odell on the early going. What about Dallas?
Dallas, you can look at Dak in GVPs. He's 8,200. It's fine with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Zeke, I'm not going to pay 9,000 for Zeke right now. He is that offensive line is not performing well. So he's getting his, and he's still doing it, but it's tough. It's tough sledding right now. And I feel like there's way better option up at that price this week anyways that we'll talk about in a little bit. But Zeke to me is fade or GPP only. Wide receiver wise, we saw Michael Gallup have the week that we thought. We knew it was coming. We talked about it on the wide stream. I think that you can attack this Cleveland secondary, with Amari Cooper and stuff like that. I don't know which one I prefer the most. CeeDee Lamb, you need to check. There was rumors that he twisted his ankle or twisted his knee in the second half, and that's why he didn't play that much, but he's 5,600, so that's nothing wrong with that. I would stay away from Cedric Wilson. I feel like that was just a fluke. So, and then tight end, the guy Dalton Schultz, I could see that. Tight ends have been taking it to the Browns this year, so this could be a Dalton Schultz week at 4,900.
Last week, this week, do you know what the status is on an award for Cleveland by any chance?
Denzel Ward? I mean, we'll see tomorrow. Mm-hmm. He played during the game, but I know he played on Sunday, but
he didn't.
We'll see how it is.
He didn't re-injure as far as like.
No, okay. Not that I know of. I mean, everything we'll know. Tomorrow we'll get a million question tags because nobody will practice or whatever. So
because honestly, this is a situation where I would want him to play to help me narrow down the receiving options for Dallas. At least take like Amari out of the equation. I mean, not to say Amari couldn't beat it, but we all know Amari Cooper is outside of week 1. I think it was week 1, or regardless, I don't even remember, but regardless, we know Amari Cooper has a very strong home and road splits. Something to take into account, regardless of matchup. Gallup was the surprise, and we kind of all leaned that way when we were talking about it from a tournament perspective. We talked about maybe a way to get different would be to go to Gallup. We saw Amari Cooper was projecting for decent ownership. We saw CeeDee Lamb was projecting for just as high of ownership. And that ended up, being the case. This week, though, I do want to check the status of Lamb because I do think the plan is to have Cooper and Lamb be I think we're going to see those guys be the main two guys going forward. I think it's an interesting Zeke spot. Not that it's a great matchup on paper, but I think that the ownership on him could be low and the price has come down on DraftKings. He's 7,800 on DraftKings, so he just projects well. But this is a spot where receivers have typically been the way to go. The Browns are not an easy defense to run on, so you would need them to get Zeke more involved. Zeke is averaging 7 targets a game at this point, which is promising. But yeah, definitely a situation to get. For a game with a massive total, I'm not that excited about it, I have to say. It's still early. But I'm not that excited. Maybe it's because I'm spoiled. We've had such
I feel like that could, it's funny, game theory wise, what if Cleveland imposes the way that they want to run the ball? That game is not getting to 55.
Right. Oh yeah. No, I know. I completely agree. The total has dropped a full point too.
I think that they just see like Cleveland's put up like 30 points the last 2 weeks in both games by playing, South Carolina State and the Sisters of the Poor the second week. You know what I mean? Like they've been playing terrible competition.
Sisters of the Poor.
So it's like I just feel like if they do play the type of games that they want with Chubb, I think that it would be a lower scoring game. But maybe not.
I feel you. I do. I agree. It's hard for me to see this game, even though, like you said, the points have been scored by both sides. I don't know. Well, Dallas's defense is pretty fucking bad, so I guess it shouldn't be that hard to envision. Maybe we'll grow into the game as the week goes on. We'll see a Friday when we do the Y stream and go position by position and all that. But as of right now, it's like there's things I want. But for a game with a 55 total, after talking about a couple games with totals in the low 40s, I wasn't excited with what I saw as much. Next game is the Baltimore Ravens and the Washington football team. We've got a 47 total. Ravens currently 13-point favorites. Lamar Jackson coming off that, on a short week, coming off that primetime dismantling by the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs just overmatched them altogether. Talk to me about the Ravens.
Yeah, I look at this is like going to be a get right spot for this week for the Ravens. They're going up against Washington. It's basically a home game again. But I just look at Lamar's price at 9,600, and I can't do it with the 3 guys below him or 4 guys below him on FanDuel. I feel like they could all outperform him on Friday or on Sunday. I just think that we may have started to see how you can slow Lamar Jackson down. Teams are starting to play him more than once now. And if you can get him out of the pocket and make him throw out of the pocket, it seems to really fluster him. So I could see him obviously having a great game against the Washington football team, but at 9,600, I just can't do it. The running back situation, you can pick that. I'm going to stay away from that. The wide receiver situation, I feel like Hollywood Brown is in the spot of all spots to break out and have that huge game against a really, really bad secondary. I feel like we want Hollywood Brown to break out. We see the talent and everything. It just hasn't happened. So if there was one player from this side I would have this week, it would be Brown in a GPP setting because people aren't going to go there. A lot of people are down on him and such because he hasn't done anything. Mark Andrews, you can go up there. He's 7,400, but I feel like if you're going to go there, just go to Kelsey and get the safeness. Andrews had a bad game. I feel like they can come back. And then the Ravens defense is the highest on the board, so if you can fit him in, why not?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this does line up as a really good bounce back spot for the Ravens. I guess my concern is Washington if they're going to push the tempo. But we've seen the Ravens. I mean, last year, week 1, when Lamar broke week 1, it was in a complete blowout. It was just like Baltimore onslaught city against the Dolphins. And that could be a situation here today. The 13-point favorites, they're playing a team that's just not good. Good pass rush. However, we have a quarterback who's good at getting out of situations and can run. I do think that the running backs are interesting, but I do think that Lamar is going to take this opportunity to kind of step up and have him a get-right game. I think his coach is going to want him to get his confidence back up. And like you said, man, Marquise Brown and Andrews both had big drops. Lamar Jackson missed Brown on a couple throws deep. So I kind of like the idea of coming here for a triple stack. It's very expensive collectively. Marquise Brown at 6'3", his prices come up. Mark Andrews is 6K on DraftKings. Lamar Jackson is 8-1. So collectively, that triple stack is expensive. But I think that there are some value plays you can consider in tournaments, and I think that we have some pretty decent running backs in the 5 to 6K range. So maybe we're able to make it work. But there's going to be other spots. Point per dollar that grade out better. But the Redskins have been playing fast. So we could see some increased opportunities. I guess my concern is if they beat them up too bad, if they start playing the running back game, that's how this all goes to shit. And because, like you said, guessing between Ingram, Dobbins, Edwards, just that wasn't fun. It wasn't fun on a 1-game slate, let alone on a 13-game slate. What about Washington? Anything here?
No.
Yeah.
I think McLaurin. I think McLaurin you could look at. The Ravens' defense has been susceptible through the air, so you're not going to be able to run on them. But the defense, I think that you could maybe throw on them. So McLaurin would be the only guy that I would look at.
I don't mind going back to Logan Thomas. And like last week was funny. I think all the tight ends kind of sucked. So even though he didn't, get where everybody wanted him to get, he was still a decent play for his price. He's 3,500 on DraftKings. As far as DVP rankings go, not DVOA, DVP rankings, Logan Thomas is in the 4th best matchup. So I could go to him. He's averaging 8 targets a game, 3,500, and he's only caught in like half the passes that are thrown at him. So if it's a situation where they're able to connect a couple more on DraftKings, a PPR site, that could go a little further. On FanDuel, I understand. At the end of the day, you got to get in the end zone on FanDuel. And it just doesn't look like something that Washington's very good at. So probably more of a DraftKings deal, at least for now. Moving on. We've got the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Tennessee Titans. We have a 47 total down from 47.5. Titans opened up -1.5. They're now 1-point underdogs. This is an interesting situation, Joey. I'm sure you've heard the Tennessee Titans have had 3 players tested positive for COVID. So their facilities are shut down. The Minnesota Vikings facilities are also shut down. As of right now, the Steelers were told to continue as if they're going to play the game regularly scheduled. But we heard the Titans facilities are going to be closed until Saturday, which means no practice, that everything's going to be virtual. There's been rumors that if for any reason the game doesn't happen on Sunday, it could be postponed and moved to Monday. There's also been discussion about the bye weeks, maybe, but so we don't really know what's going on. We'll talk about the game as if it's going on, but we don't know if this game's even going to play. With that said, talk to me about give me your thoughts, and then talk to me about the Steelers side.
Yeah, it's tough. If they don't start until Saturday and prepare, I feel like they're going to push the game back at least until Monday or Tuesday, and then that's going to probably take this game off the slate. But I wouldn't be surprised if they postponed it too. Like, if Saturday could come back and they all get tested again, and somebody else tests positive, or they're going to get tested between now and Saturday too. So if it, how it happened with the Marlins and the Cardinals, started with 3. Then it was like 6 more. Then it was like 5 more the next day. You know what I'm saying? So I right now I feel like the game is going to be put off at least until Monday or Tuesday. Okay, that's my gut reaction and everything that I've going through Twitter and what everybody's been saying. But if it does play, gotta look at the Pittsburgh side because they're going to be able to practice all week, while the Titans aren't going to be at all. They might have 1 day of walkthrough. Then they might also say, well, whoever got it, nobody else has it. You guys are down this week. We're going to still play. We don't know who has it. I think we found out it was like, a linebacker?
Yeah, it wasn't any primary players. It was like the long snapper, and I heard a practice guy squad also tested positive. It was like, it was 3 players on the main roster, I believe, but it was like 3 players that don't play much. Yeah.
It's weird,
I know.
That how that happened. But this game, if I'm looking at it from a Steelers point of view, this shapes up to be a good game for Juju and a good game for Mr. Claypool. If the game goes on Sunday, I don't think that Deontay Johnson is going to play because of concussion. If he does, though, he's going to be a great play because he got 10 and 13 targets, 6,200 on FanDuel. It's just it's such a good price and stuff, and he's got a good matchup. We saw what the rookie did to this secondary last week. So to me, it's a Juju or a Claypool week. for the Steelers.
Yeah, if this game does go, I agree with you. The Titans' defense has not been impressive. Once again, right, everybody seems to think, the defense is going to be decent, and once again, they come out and kind of shit the bed. I like Juju, like you said, at 6'6". Targets have been there. Steelers are home, correct? No, they're on the road. Okay, so home and road splits Big Ben. Stay away from Ben. But get exposure to his buddies. And so I think Connor's in play, Juju's in play. And the Deontay situation I do think is important. If Deontay's out, that makes Juju even better. And like you said, it also opens up room for Chase Claypool. Right now we have Dante in our projections. We'll obviously react accordingly when we get the news. I also don't think he'll play, so wouldn't be surprised if he was removed. But if Deontay Johnson does play, the volume he's been getting, he is the best play on the team right now, especially at that price, 5.6 on DraftKings. Just seems way too cheap for the production he's got. But that's a big if. What about the Titans side?
The Titans side, you got to be looking at Derrick Henry again, but he's 8,500. I wouldn't be doing it. I feel like the defense of Steelers is just too tough. AJ Brown's not going to play again. It'd be Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith like last few games, but I think you could probably just cross them off too, especially with what's going on. Do you really need it?
No, I agree. No, I completely agree. I mean, the Steelers' defense is not a defense that I want to mess with, right? They've been really good against the run. They've been good enough against the pass. I understand they gave him some points last week at home to Deshaun Watson, who I know he doesn't have D-Hop, but he's still a good player. He's still a playmaker. So Ryan Tannehill, I think this whole Titans team is a much better play from ahead type team than they are come from behind type team, and or at least let me correct myself. At least without AJ Brown present, I do think AJ Brown makes a significant difference in this pass game. But without him, quite frankly, they haven't looked so great. Jonnu Smith has certainly looked decent, and I'm okay with going back to him. They're obviously trying to utilize him a lot more this season. I think AJ Brown being out has a lot to do with that, so I'm fine with it. But I'm with you. There's not a ton from the Titans side that I'm interested in going into this week. Arizona Cardinals, Carolina Panthers. We have a 52 total, up from 51. The Cardinals opened up -4. They're already down to -3.5, despite 77% of the bets coming in on the road team. Talk to me about Kyler Murray and the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's everybody knows who's going to be getting the ball in Arizona. It's Kyler, it's DeAndre, and it's Kenny and Drake, really. We had a little Andy Isabella last week. So if Kirk is out, maybe Isabella becomes more playable and such. But for me, it's Kyler Murray. You can have him in cash. He's pretty safe. He's going to get you what you need, and you're gonna be just fine with it against a team like the Panthers, who aren't very good defensively. And I don't think you really need Drake at 7,000, even though he has a great matchup. I just think that he's not getting the carries that you want on the goal line to get that touchdown. He's going to have to break one. It seems like Kyler's running it in, or he's going to be tossing it to Hopkins or Isabella. So to me, it's just Kyler and D-Hop mostly.
Yeah, on DraftKings, I'm totally fine with Kyler and D-Hop. I'll never have an issue with that. But on DraftKings, Drake may be a little bit harder to get away from. I know that sounds weird, especially because Drake's not really involved in the pass game much. But the 100-yard bonus is definitely in play. He's averaging 73 yards. I'm sorry, this what's that? Pass complete? Oh, no, yeah, rush yards. He's averaging 73 yards per game on the ground with 18 touches, and he hasn't had the matchup he's about to have right now. Obviously, I have some concern with the line moving. I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina got ahead at some point or kept this game somewhat competitive enough to where Arizona does throw more. And if that's the case, from what we've seen, Kenyon Drake has not been great in the past game. But I do think that there is a world at 6K, the low price that he is. I do think that it's a phenomenal matchup, the best he's had. I do like the 18 rush attempts he's averaging right now. And I think in a plus matchup like this, and this is like beyond plus matchup, right? Carolina is just hemorrhaging rushing yards. So I am a little higher on Kenyon Drake on DraftKings, because even if he doesn't get in the end zone, I think that the 100-yard bonus is in play. And he's cheap enough at 6K. With that said, though, Joe, I'm with you. I'm never going to tell anyone not to play D-Hop or Murray. I mean, I think there's not a matchup I can foresee myself saying that in. I mean, the way that these guys play, it's super impressive. And I mean, D-Hop's floor right now just looks incredible. So no complaints on that. And I do like Drake a little bit more though. What about Carolina?
Yeah, Carolina to me. I hope everybody watched a little bit of the game and saw what Mike Davis did and realized that systems make the running back, not the other way around. Okay? Christian McCaffrey isn't the greatest running back in the world because he's just in the right system. But we saw what Mike Davis did last week. He's gotten 8 or 9 targets the 2 games that he's played, and he didn't even start the first game. He's going to get the start again. He's at 6,300 on FanDuel. He's going to get the lion's share of the carries. He got 13 carries last week against good Chargers run D. So to me, Mike Davis is one of the fairly safe plays on cash at 6,300 on FanDuel. You also got to figure that the game script is going to be in the favor of they're just going to want to dump it off to him, dump it off. They're going to be behind trying to keep up with Kyler. So Mike Davis is probably one of my favorite running back plays on a cash game sense right now, just looking at it. Wide receiver wise, I mean, like I said, you can always throw dart throws at, Curtis Samuel or maybe DJ Moore and something like that, but it's just, you don't really need it. To me, it's just Mike Davis.
I think on DraftKings, I do like Mike Davis, first of all. I mean, the guy is getting, like you said, he's getting pass work. He is the primary back. Hard to argue at 5.7 on DraftKings PPR site. Not to mention, this defense has been a little bit more vulnerable on the ground, the Arizona Cardinals defense. So I'm good with Mike Davis. I'm interested in one of these receivers. DJ Moore has not had a receiving touchdown yet. He's had a good game, right? He had 128 yards against Tampa, didn't find the end zone. I think touchdown progression is coming at some point. With that said, I also think that Robbie Anderson is a major threat to this defense. I think that's how guys like Patrick Patterson, and Patterson very well could be on DJ Moore, whatever the case is. But I think those kind of guys, like those older veteran guys, are going to get beat with speed. And that is something that this Carolina team does have a lot of. So I'm not going to totally rule out the pass catchers here because they are cheap and I think they'll be really low owned in tournaments. But I agree with you that Mike Davis seems to be a high floor play. He seems to be the highest floor play of the entire bunch. Agree with you on that. I'll let you boy. All right. Moving on to the Nolans Saints. Detroit Lions, 54. Total down from 55. Saints opened up -3.5 on the road. They're up to -4.5 currently with the support of the public. Joey, talk to me about the Saints.
I feel like if you're playing cash games in any site and anything, you just need to put the click button on Alvin Kamara. I mean, he's got the great. He's not even the highest priced running back on the slate on FanDuel. Zeke is 9,000. He got the Sunday night discount, sort of playing on Sunday night. He's only 8,800, and right now, Alvin Kamara has set like a record for like PPR points, like for running backs. Like he has over 106 points right now in PPR. So on FanDuel, like. What makes him so good of a play, it's not just the matchup, but it's because, we hear about how Breeze just can't throw downfield. He's thrown downfield like twice this whole year. There's no Michael Thomas. So it's basically, he's just dumping it to Kamara all day. So it's going to be the same thing. This game is a very tempting game to go to. I think it's going to be a very high scoring game, and I like it a lot. But Kamara, I think right now stands out as like the easiest lock button play of the slate.
Does any of that change if Michael Thomas does come back? Because there are reports that he could be coming back this week.
Yeah, it does a little bit, but I almost feel like Kamara is this year's Christian McCaffrey. Like the Saints are not going to be as good as everybody thought they are, and they're always going to be in these games where they're either having to come from behind or in it to where Kamara is going to be needed. And yeah, it does change a little bit, but I just feel like Kamara, like when you look at the other running backs up in that area, he's got the best matchup. We saw what Aaron Jones did against these guys. To me, Kamara is just the play. Now, receiver wise, you could throw like Emmanuel Sanders, Traquan Smith. They've all been just not reliable. Same thing with Jared Cook. So it's very simple. It's going to be Kamara, and if Michael Thomas comes back, they priced him accordingly. And I think you could go there if you had like a GPP a lot. But Jeffrey Okudah actually played pretty decent against Hopkins last week. They didn't destroy the slate like everybody thought they would. So, heed warning on Michael Thomas. He might even be on a pitch count either. Also. So to me, it's just Kamara.
Yeah, definitely a lot to pay attention to regarding Thomas's status. I'm with you on Kamara. Either way, I think Kamara is a good play, right? It's a good matchup for him. We've seen running backs excel. They're on the road where Breeze isn't usually as efficient, although it is in a dome. Michael Thomas is very cheap on DraftKings, man. He's 7.6. So if he does get ruled in, they're really tempting you on a PPR site to give him a shot. And I think he makes for a good tournament option in that case. But I do agree with you that Kamara right now, especially if Thomas is out, Kamara looks like one of the plays of the slate. If Thomas comes in again, I do think it'll have some effect for sure. And I will like Thomas. I think that price is just too low, so I'll have some in tournaments. But if he's out, Kamara just looks like a slam dunk once again. Just don't see how that goes wrong if Thomas is out. What about this? What about Matthew Stafford, man? They've really been a first half offense. They're really struggling to get things going. They got Galladay back, and in the first half, he got a touchdown. He was supposed to be on a pitch count himself, but managed to find the end zone like Marvin Jones. Well, I guess it was what it was. But anyway, talk to me about Detroit.
Yeah, Detroit. I like Stafford. I like Galladay. It's a great, like, if you were stacking this game, you're just doing like a Stafford, Galladay, Kamara, maybe even like a Hawkinson in there too. I like that. The thing that stands out the most to me is that Marshawn Lattimore has not been Marshawn Lattimore this year. So they are just getting crushed in the secondary. We saw what Lazard did without Adams. I mean, if it's not Mike Evans, Lattimore can't cover him. On the tight end side, saw Bobby Tonyan score last week against these Saints, and then 2 weeks ago we saw Darren Waller look like Antonio Gates, the best tight end ever. So you know what I mean? So I like Hawkinson, I like Galladay, I like Stafford. The running game, like one of those things, just you can go pick it. I'm not going to even try, because how they only get DeAndre Swift two touches in that game last week is beyond me. And then Adrian Peterson gets like 25 carries or something. I just don't get it. So I'll just stay away from it. It's never going to kill me.
I don't want anything to do with the running game here. Too many good running backs to be taking a shot on this situation, but I am with you on the pass game. I actually like Stafford at 5,900 on DraftKings. I think that's cheap. He's at home. I expect him to perform better. Galladay's back, to me, is a big deal for him. And I like the idea of, obviously you could take Galladay Jones together, but I do like the idea of taking Hawkinson and choosing one of the two. I lean towards Galladay as well. But it's a fairly cheap stack when you consider 5.9 for Stafford, 6K for Galladay, 4.8 for Hawkinson. Not bad, and I think the upside's there. Number one in DVP right now against the tight end. A lot of that has to do with Darren Waller. But Hawkinson's been legit, man. I wish they would find a way to get him more consistent targets, because I think he's capable. But maybe what it takes is a game against the Saints. So I'm with you, man. I like this game in general, and I do like the passing game of the Lions. I do, and I will all day. Next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cincinnati Bengals. We have a 48.5 total. This total opened up originally at 44.5. So I think like perception based off of how these teams have been to this point has raised this total. Bengals opened up -3.5. It still sits at -3.5. We're going to talk about Jacksonville first because they're the road team. Joey, what do you got on Jacksonville?
Yeah, I think it's James Robinson time. He's played himself into a role where you can use him in any setting, cash or GPP. He had in a negative game script last week. He had 11 carries, 46 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, but he also had 6 receptions with 83 yards. The week before, 16 carries and 102 rushing yards with a touchdown. And now he probably gets his best matchup, line-wise, to run the ball against the Bengals. So James Robinson at 6,600 fits right in nicely in your cash games, especially when you want to pay up for guys like AK. So I feel like looking into this slate, he is the most safe and probably the only play you want from this game. Maybe some DJ Chark if he plays. But we saw how Minshew is when DJ Chark's not there to stretch the field. Very, very pedestrian, and you just don't want that. I guess if you were doing a ton of lineups, Minshew does have that upside to sling it around.
Yeah, I agree. I think the first stop is James Robinson. We'll get to Joe Mixon on the other side. I also think he's in play. I don't want to play them both together. I want to pick one. So it really depends on the build I'm in. But I think James Robinson is the better matchup on paper. The Bengals have been hemorrhaging yards. Even though Miles Sanders didn't do what everybody wanted him to do, he still had a pretty good game for real football standards. Robinson's been getting a lot of carries, averaging 14.3 attempts per game, averaging 70 yards per game, averaging a touchdown per game at this point. Rushing touchdown, that is. And he's getting pass game work, too. He's averaging 43 yards per game through the air. So I'm with you. I don't love the price. I think there's cheaper guys that I like a little bit, and the 6.5 price tag is on DraftKings a little. On FanDuel, the 6.6 is reasonable. 6.5 on DraftKings is kind of expensive. And also, I think it matters if DJ Chark is back or not. If DJ Chark is back, I do think that Minshew will be able to move the ball through the air. Like you said, without him to stretch the field, this whole thing falls apart, and I think that causes them to rely heavily on James Robinson. So if Chark is in, I give a slight downgrade to Robinson on DraftKings, specifically because of his price. And obviously a little bit of a boost to Chark himself. I would say Minshew, but I don't know how much Minshew I'll get to, even against the Bengals. I think I prefer the passing game on the other side. But that's it. It's Robinson, Chark. If Chark's out, I like Robinson more. That's about it. What about... What you got? Oh, my bad. No. I thought that you were asking a question. What about the Bengals side, Joe?
Oh, no. The Bengals side, I think Boyd is like the guy that everybody's looking at. He seems to be the one that's being the most beneficial for Burrow. So I like Tyler Boyd at 6,000. That's actually not a bad value. He's gotten, he got 13 targets last week. So and it's an overtime, but still, it's not bad. T. Higgins is I think the sexy bougie pick because of what he did last week. So everybody thinks it's going to come up. He had 2 touchdowns and this and that. So that's going to happen again. But let's wait a little bit, I think. And then Joe Mixon, he's fine at 6,800. You just wait. I feel like in a cash game setting, I'm going to go with Robinson over Mixon.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And from the tournament perspective, it makes sense to go the other way around a little bit for the sake of ownership, on DraftKings at least, because he's 5'8". It's a big difference, right? Like on FanDuel, Mixon is more expensive than Robinson by $200. On DraftKings, Mixon is 5'8", while Robinson is 6'5". So it is a little bit more site dependent. Mixon is averaging 17.3 rushing attempts per game. Not a ton of passing work, we know that. But the volume is there from that approach. So I do think that it's more of a site-specific. The way you handle this game is kind of site-specific in terms of the running backs, based off the price you're getting, expectation. The matchup looks a little bit better for Jacksonville at the moment, but I think Mixon's an above-average running back, even though he's got a below-average offensive line. So I think he can make plays, which makes me like him in tournaments at his price at 5'8". It looks like Tyler Boyd is starting to surpass A.J. Green. I know that the A.J. Green's targets are there, but the bottom line is Boyd's have been more efficient. So Boyd is averaging 8.7 targets per game, and he's averaging 7 receptions per game. The bottom line is A.J. Green is just not connecting. Joe Burrow and A.J. Green aren't connecting. Now, granted, A.J. Green has had some tough matchups, right? Like on the sleeks. Right? Even last week, Darius Slay was chasing him all over the field. Maybe this is a little bit of a better situation. Hasn't looked that way, but we did see Ryan Fitzpatrick tear these guys up. Granted, a lot with that was with Gesicki, but that's also an offense that schemes to throw to their tight end, right? They want to get Gesicki the ball. So I think that one of Tyler Boyd or A.J. Green. I'm with you on Higgins. Last week was great. I don't think I'm going to rely on that going forward. I think that Boyd and Green are the main targets here. And I guess you can consider Sample, though last week we did see that that was gone matchup-wise. Maybe it's, if you want to do your dirty that way, that's fine. But I'm interested in Mixon, and I'm interested in Boyd and Green. Any interest in Joe Burrow?
I guess. I mean, me, I don't do very many teams, so I would say me, no. But I feel like if you were doing, a lot of teams,
right. Somebody keeping the pool. I'm with it. I like the way you answered. I like your style, but you know that already. We've been doing this for a while. All right, next up, one game that I'm very excited about: the Minnesota Vikings and the Houston Texans. We have a 54.5 total, up from 51.5. Texans opened up -3.5. They're up to -4. Assuming that, unfortunately, the Vikings had the same shit going on. Vikings had to shut down their facility because they played the Titans. So they're shut down until Saturday, I believe, also, until further notice. I think what it is I think they did a round of tests, and they won't get the results till like Friday or something like that. I think that's what it is, from what I read, but I didn't read it very well, so don't take my word for it. Either way, talk to me about, assuming the game does play, talk to me about the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, Houston gives up a lot of yards on the ground, so Dalvin Cook, I feel like, is a great pivot off of Kamara. We saw what he did last week. He got 2 touchdowns, I think. So he's averaging 20 points, almost 21 FanDuel points. So I can deal with that. Adam Thielen is 7,100. I feel like Adam Thielen and Paulie are like dating because every week Paulie loves Adam Thielen. Every week it's like Adam Thielen and Paulie are like boys. They're like freaking Guidos together, man. It's awesome. So, but Thielen just hasn't done it except for week 1. So, the wide receiver Justin Jefferson, I feel like, once again, if you want to go and do a lot of teams, send him on a couple of them. But I feel like he's fool's gold if you think he's going to go out there and do what he did, like he did last week. So, assuming that Roby's on Thielen, maybe Jefferson's going to do good. I could be completely wrong. He could be the receiver that's going to take everybody by storm that nobody knew. Everybody thought it was going to be Lamb or Judy or Ruggs, but it's this guy Jefferson. So I just feel like you heed warning on that, but nothing in the tight end, and I do not play Kirk Cousins on the road.
Yeah, I don't play Kirk Cousins at all. Just don't like it. But yeah, Dalvin Cook I think is a phenomenal play. 7,600 on DraftKings looks way too low. Like you said, Houston's been giving up a lot of fantasy points to running backs. We saw James Conner had a real big week last week. I expect Houston to be good offensively against the bad Minnesota defense. But I think that Cook has been kind of, even against Tennessee, that game was real tight in a shootout game against, and Cook got his carries. Cook was heavily involved, and that's just the way, that's what Minnesota's going to do. They're not built to throw the ball 50 times. They're built to try to run the ball, get Dalvin Cook the ball, play action, throw it to Thielen. That's about it. Justin Jefferson, I'm optimistic from a season-long perspective because I think he's stepping into a role here. And I am curious on what they do with the coverages, but in this particular matchup, being that this price has been increased so much, it's just asking for lightning to strike twice is a little worrisome. But this is a great game. So listen, if I end up coming here for stacks, which I know I will be stacking the Houston side. We'll talk about them in a second. I will probably have some tournament exposure to Jefferson, but obviously Dalvin Cook, Paulie's boy Adam Thielen, totally, or your main stops, so to speak.
Yeah, I drafted Justin Jefferson in like the 13th or 14th round of my 14th round of my home league. So it's like one of those, like, it's just a stock. You just let them percolate. Hopefully by the end of the year you can really use it.
Yeah, let them percolate. Exactly. Talk to me about the Houston side, Joe.
The Houston side, I feel like this is like, oh my God, we've been lifting 500-pound weights for the last 3 weeks, and now they're going to say, okay, you can finally go back to lifting 100-pound weights. And it's like, okay, finally. They had probably three of the toughest teams in the NFL the first 3 weeks, and now they get to play the terrible Vikings defense. So Deshaun Watson at 7,800, gotta look at him as just in a get-right spot. Almost gotta look, you gotta look at it in a way of like he has a fairly good floor too of what he provides. On On the other side, on the running back, David Johnson at 6,700. He's facing Minnesota. We know you can run against Minnesota. He had a good week 1. He's going to have better times this week, easier fronts. And then Will Fuller at 6,100, as long as he is healthy, he's going to get Holden Hill, who is the worst cornerback in the league, on him. So fire up Mr. Will Fuller for a big game. I don't mind if you wanted to do a 3-man with a DJ, Watson, and Fuller stack. I don't mind that. And then if you were doing a full stack and throwing just something, putting Akins in there, wouldn't mind either. Watson seems to have a good rapport with him. But I don't mind this Houston side at all. I feel like this game is going to be high scoring.
Yeah, I love the Houston side. What worries me a little bit is both teams are kind of like lagging in pace. Neither team has played very quickly, but we still have an extremely high total. We have 2 defenses that have not been good, so we can bank on. I think we're banking on efficiency a little bit, which is scary, but I love it, man. Watson 6'6", which doesn't sound great initially, but when you consider the prices of the rest of the quarterbacks above him. 6'6" it don't seem so bad, especially when Will Fuller's only 5'9" and David Johnson is 5'8". Granted, you have Randall Cobb who went for a touchdown, Brandon Cooks at 4,500. I think at some point these guys will be implemented at the offense better, but right now Johnson and Fuller are just the main 2 upside players here. Really good matchup for the receivers. Third in DVP, the matchup for Houston. 7th for David Johnson. Now, Duke Johnson has missed, obviously, some time, so I want to see what his status is before making a final decision on how heavy I go on David Johnson. But because Duke Johnson's been out, David Johnson's playing like every snap. He's playing just a ton. And he's got, like you said, a soft match. He hasn't had a matchup like that. I mean, week 1, he looked pretty good. That's just how bad the Chiefs' run defense is. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs were stomping him, so he only runs so much. Definitely the softest matchup that this team will have seen. They're at home. It's a really good spot for an eruption. I really like I really like Watson. I like Fuller. I like DJ. And again, I'll work in some exposure to the Cobbs and Cooks because I think I'll have enough of the Watson stacks that I'll have enough teams to distribute that. But the Watson, Johnson, Fuller looks juicy, and all 3 of those, and Johnson and Fuller both alone look pretty good too in this matchup. Holla at your boy. With that said, next up, Seattle Seahawks, Miami Dolphins, another pretty good game. 54 total. Seattle currently on the road, -6.5 on the road. Joey, talk to me about Russell Wilson, who is just straight cooking this year.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. At 9K on FanDuel against one of the worst secondaries. It's tough to think that this game is. I feel like this game is going to shoot out. Saw 2 weeks ago Buffalo come into Miami and Miami hung with them, threw on them. I think that can happen again. We saw this Seattle defense is not good at all. Jamal Adams or not, it's just not good right now. So fire up Russ. I think he's going to have to do it again on the road. I don't mind that. If Carson's out, I think Carlos Hyde makes a decent play. I don't think that he is cash viable. I just don't know how much he's going to get because this seems like they've just morphed into a passing offense. And then on the receiver side, Tyler Lockett at 7,500. And then once again, my boy, I don't know what he has to do to get over 7K. DK Metcalf, he's still 6,900 on FanDuel. He's the only receiver in the game that's like averaging over 30 yards a catch. He's got 4 catches a game. He got a touchdown. He should have had a second one. It was a bonehead play, but I feel like he just thought like the receiver just gave up, and he had 2 touchdowns. But he wouldn't have probably caught that second touchdown if the first one would have went in. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like he caught the second touchdown on the last play of the game. They probably wouldn't have needed it because he didn't have that turnover. He would have ran into the touchdown without an extra touchdown. You know, and they would have had an extra touchdown. They would have been up by even more than they were before. So, but yeah, DK's got to think better on that. But yeah, Obviously, he's probably one of my favorite players in the NFL right now, so I'm going to always pump him up, especially when he's under 7K. And he's got a great matchup. Jesus. So to me, it's Russ, Lockett, Metcalf. You can put them both on there because you know he's going to be throwing.
Yeah, I agree, especially with Carson out. I think with Carson in, there's always we saw against Atlanta in Week 1. They threw to him for a couple touchdowns, which I guess you can consider our vultures for Lockett and Metcalf in that situation. But with Carlos Hyde, it's hard to envision a ton of pass game work. It's certainly possible, right? That he's on the road. Maybe he uses it as a check down situation. But immediately looking into it with no Carson, you got to think that's a boost for Wilson, Lockett, and Metcalf. So I know the prices are high. You're going to be looking for, and then that's why I'm so high on players like David Johnson, who are like 5'8", Joe Mixon, who's like 5'8", 5'9", affordable running backs, so that I can come here and spend a little bit of money. Because Russell Wilson is 7-8 on DraftKings, which is only I think $300 cheaper than Lamar Jackson, and he's earned it. I'm not complaining, but so, something to consider. But we're seeing Russ cook, and he's throwing the ball a ton, and it's working. And his team looks fucking unstoppable right now, so it's a glorious thing. And like you said, really soft matchup. With that said, could be argued that it's just as soft of a matchup on the other side. As you mentioned, Joe, talk to me about the Miami offense.
Yeah, the Miami offense, we've found that they can put up points, especially with Fitzpatrick. He's a competent quarterback. He's 7,100. His last 2 weeks, he's gone over 3x. So I feel like he's at home. He's facing a terrible defense. If you wanted to roll with him in cash, he's the guy I would be paid down for if you weren't paying up. I'd either pay up for the guys up top, or I'm going all the way down to him and pay and getting a piece of that game. I feel like this is probably going to be the most popular game. Like ownership wise, New England, Kansas City people might go to, and we'll talk about it. But what else? What are you going to want from that game to where it's going to garner as much ownership as like a concentrated of everybody knows where people are going to go on this game? Kansas City, New England, they could go. Oh, there's a lot of other different ways they could go. But to me, it's like Fitzpatrick, the running back for 5,400. Myles Gaskin, we've seen that he's been getting. The carries. He got 22 carries last week. Just can't do anything with it. That's a terrible line. So don't be expecting much, but he's not going to, at 5,400, I could see him being somewhat popular. The receiver, it's basically, who do you want to really go with? Devontae, they're both good. I feel like Preston Williams is the better play he's $1,000 less than Devontae Parker. And I think they have both the same upside. So I feel like doing your lineup, I don't really know who to. I think Preston Williams is what I prefer, and then Gesicki, I wouldn't go to because I think Jamal Adams is going to be on Gesicki.
I mean, I was just going to say with Jamal Adams, he was hurt. He got hurt in that Cowboys game, and came out at the end of the game. So we got to pay attention to his status. Like you said, tomorrow we'll have more information on the injuries. If Jamal Adams is out, I think that's a significant boost to Gesicki's matchup. Because remember, they traded their previous safety for Jamal Adams. So that means they're looking at a reserve safety in there. And this is an offense that has been exploiting opposing teams with the tight end Gesicki, who seems to be one of the more talented players on the team. So Gesicki, I would like if Adams is out. If Adams is in, I'm going back to these receivers. Like you said, Devontae Parker, number one. Projects the best for us on DraftKings. I think he's got the higher ceiling. However, I agree that Preston Williams also has upside. And I like them both in a tournament scenario stacked with Fitzpatrick. Seattle's number one in DVP to the receiver, number two to the quarterback. So assuming that Fitzpatrick comes out competent, and if Jamal Adams is out, that's a big blow to anyone's defense, not having Jamal Adams. Take it from me, a Jet fan who traded him away. So I think that, like you said, this game should garner some ownership. I think the Seahawks side especially will be popular. And me personally, I'll be looking to target some Miami guys because this game just looks, I'm assuming every Seattle game is going to shoot out as long as the offense is capable. And everybody loves a little bit of Fitzmagic once in a while. So I'm with it. Next up, we're into the 4 o'clock games. We have the New York Giants visiting the LA Rams. 47.5 total, down from 48.5. Rams opened up -12, they're up to -13. Joey, talk to me about the Giants first.
Let me ask you a question before I talk about the Giants. If you were to combine the Giants and the Jets, you still would probably be like third place in like any division in the NFL.
Without a doubt, yes. Just from a talent perspective, yeah. I mean, there's one superstar between those two teams, and he's injured. You know what I mean? So, yes, I would agree with that.
Oh man, I feel like this week it's like Rams defense is in play for sure. At 4,800, but the Giants, yeah. I don't know if there was anybody I would really go to if I was even making like 20 lineups. Maybe Darius Slayton, but that's it. Maybe Evan Ingram, because Tyler Kroft caught like two touchdowns last week. It looked like they were a little bit tough on. They're not that tough on the tight end. And Ingram's a decent price at 5,600, but there's nothing of the Giants here.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think you could take your shots on like a Golden Tate in the slot, or maybe Evan Ingram is probably the best looking play from the Giants at 4-4. Not really into the running backs either. Just I feel like there's probably better plays. I mean, Devontae Freeman, if I knew he was going to get regular work at 4,800, I'd consider him. I just don't know how much they're willing to throw him out there immediately, being his situation, being he was just sitting on his ass for the last X amount of months. And then not literally, maybe he wasn't literally sitting on his ass, but it still wasn't getting game action. So not the same deal. I have to make an update to the sheet real quick. In the meantime, talk to me about the Rams offense, Joey.
Yeah, the Rams offense, I feel like they're all in play. Jared Goff's in play. Running back Darrell Henderson's in play. I think Akers isn't going to play much. And Malcolm Brown. Henderson made a good impression, and I feel like he is a decent pivot on FanDuel off of those other like value plays that I told you around the same areas at 64 or 6,500. Wide receivers, once again, I don't understand it, but Robert Woods is below Cooper Kupp. Don't know why. Robert Woods is a better player. So, he's they both have great matchups, and they're both actually good cash game plays, especially Robert Woods for his price being $500 less. And then Tyler Higbee, if you want to run it, that's fine. But the Rams defense, I think, is what sticks out the most here.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Rams defense, first of all, at home against this Giants team. I know Saquon. I don't really have interest a ton in Goff coming off that game. I'm just worried the Giants aren't going to push him enough. And the Rams have been very run-heavy when they need to be. This is a pretty good matchup for both the pass game and the run game, but looking at that spread, man, like assuming the Rams do blow the Giants out as expected, you got to think it's a good situation for the running backs. Now, Darrell Henderson seems to be the guy now, right? Malcolm Brown was the guy in week 1. They kind of slowly switched that over, it looks like. Henderson's certainly been more effective. So I'm assuming he's the guy, and if he is, I do love the idea of pairing him with the Giants' run D. However, with that said, if the game does get out of hand, you have to wonder if they will try to reserve Henderson a little bit for a better situation and use Malcolm Brown in a situation. Then again, it's a chance to get the young guys some work either way. So I really like Darrell Henderson coming into this. I know he's not really a ton involved in the pass game, but I think the matchup is good. I think the volume should be there. I think they're going to run the ball because I think they're going to be up. So I like the correlation of the Rams defense with Henderson. Oh, that's your boy. Moving right along, we've got the Buffalo Bills and the Oakland Raiders. We have a 51.5 total, up from 49.5. Bills opened up -3 on the road. They're down to -2.5, which is a pretty key number to cross. Talk to me about Josh Allen, who's looked awesome this year.
Yeah, he's on the road, and he's facing the Raiders defense that is so-so. I feel like he's a decent GPP play. When I look at his price on FanDuel, accordingly, where he's right below Mahomes, Russ, in between him and Kyler, I'm just not going to do it. He showed a lot last game, so if you want to go, he's a good pivot, but I'm just not going to do it. I think Singletary is a decent spot because of Mr.
Moss.
Mr. Moss being out again. So he's not.
Is he out again, Moss?
No. Well, he's questionable, so
okay.
I feel like he's in a good spot. So the Raiders can't really stop anybody. And then the receiving core, you got Stephon Diggs is priced at $7K, but there's some other guys down below. Gabriel Davis, he got like 8 targets or so after Mr. Brown was out, so I don't mind him. And then Beasley, again, seems to just be getting, he's like vanilla ice cream, but he's probably a decent value on DraftKings, and he's going to get you maybe 6 or 7 targets, and if he gets in the end zone, he really makes value. So they're decent. This game's really hard to read. I feel like Buffalo can win the game, and they should win the game if they're one of the best teams in the AFC. But the Raiders played better at home, as we saw as they beat the Saints a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I agree. I think this game lines up really well for the running game, right? Oakland's actually first in DVP for running back. So Singletary immediately. If Moss is in, that's going to mess the situation up for me. But if Moss is out, I like Singletary. He got good work last week. I would expect him to get that work again. And I think Allen is good enough to keep this team in the game on the road to where they can afford to continue to run if it's effective. So I do like Singletary. I'll probably have exposure to Josh Allen. I think I'm going to the rest of the season because every time Paulie always asks me to, what about Josh Allen? And I always find an excuse not to play the guy. No more. I'm just going to fucking play the guy. Now, he's across the country, so this is probably not the best spot, right? He's across the country playing a Raiders team that on paper does not look like a great defense, so he should do well. Maybe this is the spot he finally busts. But I'm going to have exposure to him going forward. But I think Singletary, as of right now, is my favorite actual play from the game, barring any biases. What about the Oakland side?
The Oakland side, Derek Carr, he is just vanilla. I don't think you need it. The receivers, I'm not really interested in. There's nobody there you're really going to go to. I think it's either Darren Waller or nothing. And then on the running back side, I think Josh Jacobs at 8K becomes a decent GPP play. But I'd probably just be looking at Waller this week, and that's about it.
I agree. The target share for Waller is phenomenal. The target share for his receivers, not so much. It's come to a point where I am having a hard time projecting which receiver I think is going to be worth a damn. So it's Waller or nothing for me. And that's weird, right? The Bills have been in a bunch of shootouts, or at least they were just in a really big shootout against a good team. Now they're playing another team that's been impressive, overperforming to some people's standards, yet it's hard on both sides to really fall in love with anything. So maybe a situation that we need to investigate further, and by Friday, hopefully I have a decision on what my final approach on this game is. My initial instinct is to say, nah, I really don't like it. I like Singletary, I like Waller, move on. But from a tournament aspect, game theory aspect, this is another high total game, and if I'm having a difficult time pinpointing players that I want, maybe the rest of the field will too. So I will have to come back and check on ownership. Speaking of ownership, curious on what the ownership is going to be for this next game, which is the New England Patriots visiting the Kansas City Chiefs. We have a 54 total. Chiefs currently 7-point favorites at home. Talk to me about Cam Newton and the New England Patriots.
Yeah, they're going to have to come to play this week, and they're going to have to, bring it. Mahomes is coming off of a short week. Seemed to me like I feel like, Mahomes was kind of looking ahead week 2 when they were playing the Chargers because they came out and looked just amazing. And he put up a 40 spot, ran in a touchdown, ran a little bit, 42 attempts, just looked great. But the Patriots and Cam, last week he kind of disappointed a little bit. He's 7,900. They moved his price up. I don't know if I can pay for him. I think he's a good GPP play, like he was sort of a couple weeks ago in Seattle. And he just came back, and he just, it could be a decent game. But I'm not really into him at his price. I prefer Deshaun Watson at 7,800 or Dak right above him. At running back, once again, I don't want to pick that. You want to pick that Burkhead week, you got it right. You do it again, you're not going to get it right. So forget Burkhead. Receivers, it's either Edelman or Harry, and that's it. Tight end, you don't even want. So it's either Cam or Edelman to me.
Yep. Yeah. No, I'm with you. Do we know if James White is back?
No, he's not going to be back. I don't think.
So, if he's out, that obviously makes to me, I'm only asking for Edelman's sake because White is a guy that can take some pass targets away. I'm with you. I'm not trying to guess the Michelle Burkhead thing. I mean, I think Cam Newton in the competitive game is the real running back here. So I do like Cam a lot. Cam's one of the few guys that I'll play without triple stacks. I'll play him by himself. But I also don't hate the idea of going back to N'Keal Harry. I know that the Chiefs on paper have been good against the pass and weak against the run. I think Cam Newton's going to run a lot. And I do think that Cam's ability to stay on his feet and to create, and the threat of him running could be good for him. So we saw the Chiefs handle Lamar Jackson, so I think people might assume, okay, well, he's going to do the same thing to Cam Newton. But Cam Newton's been around, man. He's been around. He's played some tough defenses before, and I think he's a little bit more willing. Like, I trust Cam Newton a little bit more on a pass level than I do Lamar to Brown. Like, I think I trust Cam to Edelman in certain situations, certain matchups. They're veterans. So I do like Cam Newton this week. I like pairing him with Edelman. I'm willing to give N'Keal Harry a shot because he's $4K. It's really, really cheap for N'Keal Harry. A guy that's averaging 7.3 targets per game right now. So I do like it. With that said, Joe, talk to me about the Chiefs, and we'll wrap this up.
The Chiefs, I think Mahomes makes a great cash play on Sunday. I think to me it's going to be him or Russ that you're going to want to pay up for. He just, there's so many ways that they can go at you and such, and he just looks like he's just hitting his stride. He's amazing. Running backs, I have some interest in Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week at 7,400 on FanDuel. He looked good last week, and I feel like, Belichick tries to slow down your best options. He might just be like, I'll let Edwards-Helaire run all day and try and stop, Tyreek Hill and Kelsey trying that way. Because, we saw Mecole Hardman and stuff like that come out. Like I said, hard man. I did one comment. I said, hard man yesterday.
Huh? You did on the Showdown show. You did, Joey.
It was funny. I just saw like his snap count went up from week 2, and I just feel like his usage was going to go up, and I got lucky. So, but I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 7,400. Receivers, Tyreek Hill. At 8K, he seems to always catch that touchdown. He hasn't had that blow-up game yet, but he hasn't had that 0 either that he can have. So he's a fairly decent option. Kelsey, if you're going to pay up, he's the best tight end to pay up for. And that's it. I mean, you could, like I said, Hardman, Robinson, if you're doing a lot of teams like that, Watkins, you throw those guys in there too. There's so many options, but those are the main guys.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of want to attack New England with a receiver. The problem is, and it's a problem for fantasy, not a problem for real life football, but Patrick Mahomes spreads the ball out so well that it's really hard to guess who's going to get that opportunity. So it's early in the week. I'll kind of go through and see. Obviously, Tyreek Hill's the obvious. Kelsey is the obvious, but Kelsey's at tight end. As far as the actual receivers go, weighing out Tyreek Hill versus Watkins, weighing out Hardman versus Robinson, I think could be beneficial to as far as the pricing goes, point per dollar. So Sammy Watkins is 4.4, Mecole Hardman is 4,300, Robinson is 39. I think one of those guys does well and is a phenomenal value play. It's just hard to, based on volume, it's hard to guess which one it's going to be. And that bothers me because I want to I want to stack this game to a degree, right? I like Cam, and even if I'm playing Cam, who am I going to remake on the other side? I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is certainly in play just based off his usage. I mean, he's getting pass game work, getting run game work, so I'm definitely interested in him, especially he's probably the answer. It's probably him, one receiver. On the other side, I go Cam, Edelman, and call it a fucking day. He's probably the answer. That's going to do it for the Game by Game Breakdown. Don't forget to participate in our Twitter campaign contests. All you got to do is go to the Wise Take Twitter at @wise_take. You'll find the pinned tweet. It'll be up right after the show. I'll create it. Make sure you go there. You got to like the tweet. You have to like the tweet, share the tweet, make sure you're following Wise Take on Twitter at @wise_take, and you will be entered into a drawing for a free $50. So just a little wheel thing. We did it last week. It was fun. People liked it. Gave away $20. Now we're giving $50. So let's participate. Let's get as many names as possible in that bitch, and let's do dirties. Joey, anything in closing before we get up out of here, bro?
No, man. Just want everybody to let you know you'll be getting my article on Saturday, but I will not be here on Friday for the Wise stream. I'm actually going to be out of town, going away doing an adults weekend trip. So you will not be seeing me this weekend.
A different kind of adulting. Yeah. Patio Joe, a.k.a. Audie Fulton. Don't forget to like the video, guys. Subscribe to the channel. Don't miss out on any of the content. We will be back. We're covering playoffs during the week via stream if the slates are big enough, which they are for the next few days. And don't forget, the NFL Wise stream will be Friday night. Myself, Paulie D, will do a little bit earlier since Joey's not going to be around. So be on the lookout for what time we do that. With a little bit more or position by position show after we've done our research. Time to do dirties. For Patio Joe, for myself, the entire Wise Take Nation, as always, good luck.
Peace.